All right, we're already. So hello and welcome to the Museum of Latin American Arts Latinx Heritage Month. My name is Elizabeth Aguilar, volunteer manager at MOLA. And on behalf of the rest of the team here at MOLA, I would like to thank you for joining us today as we learn more about the Latino Comics Expo. Before we begin, I would like to thank the sponsor that made this event possible and accessible. Please enjoy this trailer for the series Star Wars Vision, streaming now on Disney+.
Long ago, a great warrior entrusted our ancestors with this. Its responsibility now lies with you. You've been guided by the Force since you were born.
First time I've confronted such darkness. Something ancient and sinister.
Let's make this our best show ever!
I accept this responsibility.
MOLA receives additional support from the Robert Gumbinder Foundation, the City of Long Beach, and the Arts Council of Long Beach. The education programming at MOLA is supported by the Norris Foundation, the Miller Foundation, the Dwight Stewart Youth Fund, and other generous individuals. Your hosts for today's program are the hosts of the Comadres Y Comics podcast, Kristen, Jennifer, and Sara. We are excited to be joined today by Crystal Gonzalez. Crystal Gonzalez is a Chicana who grew in the NV and resided in the San Francisco Bay Area for the past 11 years. She graduated with the BA at the University of Nevada and earned her master's MFA at the California College of the Arts. She is best known for her indie published graphic novel, In the Dark. Today's session is pre-recorded. We do have Crystal on the call today, so if you have any questions for Crystal, please feel free to add them in the Q&A or in the chat function. We hope that you enjoy today's program. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to 2021 Latino Comics Expo Comadres Y Comics interview of the amazing Crystal Gonzalez, and she's right underneath me. Welcome, Crystal. I just want to share with you all watching the amazing description of what we are going to be talking about today. This is the Killer Cartoons, Comics, and Creatures, a spotlight on Crystal Gonzalez panel. So you are in the right spot and you are about to get your face melted off with our awesomeness. So what do you get when you mix twisted cartoony graphics with the likes of Hellraiser and Felix the Cat? It might start to look like the comic book series In the Dark. Join us today as we spotlight the career and works of cartoonist Crystal Gonzalez. So just a little brief background. Crystal is a Chicana cartoonist from Nevada originally who has transitioned over to be a Cali girl and is now amongst the not the South Bay, that's where I live, the Bay Area of California, that's up north. Crystal graduated with a BA at the University of Nevada and earned her Master's of Fine Arts degree from the California College of the Arts. She is best known for her indie graphic novel, In the Dark, a series about a man named Fibble and his demon named Sin. Together, they embark on a wild journey through a hell that has modernized itself to stay relevant in society. Fraught with demons who are addicted to Starbucks, use GPS systems, and love the internet. It sounds like my kind of hell, to be honest. This dark comedy takes a satirical edge at religions, social mores, and modern culture. So Crystal's other comic works include Trash and Clash, Schizo, the 1920s Killer Bear, and Sahu, the Super Android Hero Unit. She's actively drawing her fourth issue of her graphic novel, In the Dark, a massive 56-page volume, which she hopes to complete in the next year, and is also seeking to publish the first volume of her webcomic, Sahu, into a printed book. In addition to cartooning, Crystal is a 2D animator. Her works have been featured at this is just amazing. Like when I read this, like, oh my God, I need to know all about this. She's been featured at the Charles Schulz Museum. Oh my gosh, the creator of Peanuts. Like you can't get bigger than that when it comes to cartooning. Also the Museum of Latin American Art and the Galeria de la Raza in San Francisco. She's also a fine artist and creates large-scale surreal graphic acrylic paintings that she's exhibited in galleries around California and in the Bay Area. Once again, welcome everybody and welcome Crystal. We are so excited to spotlight you and your work.
Awesome. Thank you guys for letting me be here.
Hey.
Yeah, no, we're excited. Honestly, these demons that Kristen described, I'm just like, oh wait, that's just me. That's, you know what? I'm okay with
Can
that.
relate.
Yeah, relatable content.
So it is the Comadres Y Comics tradition on our podcast to have our guests share their quote unquote origin stories of how they entered into the comics industry. So could you please tell the audience a little bit about your history with comics and how you began your comic career?
So I would say that I've been an artist since I was a kid. So it started very early. I think that the first kind of comics that I was exposed to were newspaper comics, which is, dating myself because now,
right?
Anymore.
What's a newspaper?
Right, they'll be like, "Hey, paper,
ma'am,
funnies." And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of where it started. But yeah, it was usually comics that were kind of dark and twisted, like The Far Side,
Yes,
Family. And then there were, actually, Charlie Brown was actually a big one. And so it was like Calvin and Hobbes and Bloom County, like all those kind of comics were comics that I was reading and just loving. And it's what kind of pretty much inspired me to do my own little mini comics. So, when I started off, the comic that I do now is called In the Dark. The comics that I drew as a child were called If You Don't Get It, You're in the Dark. And, I have actually been keeping that title kind of moving on into the professional realm, but that's kind of the origin of the comics beginnings.
That's
cool. And
cool.
just
that's so nice.
Three little panel comics, gag comics, had a bunch of different weird characters that I had created and whatnot. And it wasn't until probably come elementary school that we had like a kind of like bring a professional into school day, right? And they brought a cartoonist, like an actual comic book artist, to show people how he draws comics and then how he, makes a living off of that. And I went, what? You mean somebody get paid to do these? I mean, I could be doing that. So yeah, then it became like, in my little childhood brain, I was going to be a famous comic book newspaper artist. Like I really wanted, that was my dream. and then suddenly, like, come teenage years, I realized that like I have bigger stories I wanted to tell, and they weren't going to fit in this little 3-panel, gag style. I needed to make bigger comics. So I ended up, kind of like investigating more about that. Comic books, right? Comic books. And now, I have the ability to tell a larger story here. And, growing up in Nevada, it was pretty rural. And I would say there were not a lot of comic shops, like comic shops. So, I had to kind of resort to like a Barnes and Noble, any kind of bookstore, even, grocery stores where like, they had like little stapled kind of comics like Archie.
Right.
Things like that, to kind of get like inspired by the fact that you can now tell elaborate more stories. And that's kind of where it started. So I would say that In the Dark, I actually have the comic book, In the Dark. So these characters are pretty old. I pretty much invented them in high school. And again, there wasn't like anything big connected to them yet. I kind of still didn't have, there was a story I wanted to tell, but it wasn't fleshed out. And it wasn't until I, and I continue to pursue the arts because this is definitely like my passion and what I really loved doing. So I ended up going to University of Nevada, and that's where I got my bachelor's in illustration, cartooning, and fine art. And as a minor, I had philosophy, so I have a minor in philosophy as well. So that kind of opened the doors to a lot of deep books about human condition, about social, culture, the mores that we have. It kind of mixed because, philosophy and sociology, which is like the study of human behavior, kind of mixed together. And that was sort of became like where I wanted to, basically I made a thesis that there are these words in society that we consider to be universal, but they don't have a set definition. One of those would be like the word love. Like, people say like you can't, you know what love is, but you can't define it because every single culture and every single world has different definition for what that is or what it means. So in my sense, or that is my book, one of the things that I was doing in my thesis kind of carried on into the comic book was the idea of the word sin. Sin being a transgression, a thing that you can't do in society so that, you'll be sent to this otherworldly realm of torture and, chaos, right? And I kind of thought to myself, well, what is that word? And is there really a definite definition? No, there's not. There's so many other religions out there. They all have the word sin, but they all have different definitions of what that is. And I took that idea to kind of comment and make a satire on the world that we live in around us. So the first creature that he meets in the comic book is named Gluttony. Gluttony, of course, is a word that is definitely synonymous with sin, right? All over the various religions. But what I made him was a giant caffeine-addicted coffee drinker. That's what it was. And he loves, he doesn't have a Starbucks, but he has a coffee chain in his world called Javatown. And it has like a mascot coffee bean, kind of like a Mr. Peanut. But the thing is, like, his slogan is, "We'll make you an addict," So,
oh my God.
This main character, his name's Fibble, ends up going to get a cup of coffee one day, and he's kind of tired of coffee. He doesn't want to be addicted to it anymore, right? But he can't seem to, old habits die hard. He can't seem to kick it. So he goes to a coffee shop one last time, only to be swallowed by Gluttony, the gigantic, he's a big pig, I should mention, a pig with like a lot of worms, and all these worms love caffeine. So that's why they swallow coffee shops whole, dragging everybody into this underworld of coffee addicts, right? So he basically gets swallowed, but it kind of wasn't fair because he was literally quitting. Right. It wasn't, he didn't actually have a coffee that day. He was just there to smell the fumes, to kind of help with the addiction, but not drink any. No, but anyway, it doesn't matter. He got stuck down there. And the kind of ongoing crazy adventure that happens in this underworld is that he's also been cursed. This is like kind of backstory stuff. He was cursed with this demon named Sin. So the actual creature that in my world and universe or whatever is the real animal, or the darkness, the chaos, whatnot, that created all those other sins that reside in this underworld. He's like supposed to be the most evil, most creepiest, but he's like cute, kind of, he's sort of small, he's like white. I don't know if you can get that. He's this little guy with the bunny looking ears and the giant teeth, right? It's because he's actually going through a really bad time. Like he's not as powerful as he used to be. Like in the past, he barely said the word, and people would cower in fear, and now it's like people are using the word, to advertise chocolate bars. Like it's sinfully delicious.
Yeah.
So it's kind of muddied him, and he's also, so he's lost a lot of power. So he's not really as strong as he used to be. And he kind of hates that. And then this other, to be revealed within the story, it kind of happens throughout the issues. You find out, like, why was he cursed to live with this human being in an apartment in New York City, right? Why was he first, like as like a protector? He has to protect this guy, and he hates people. He hates humanity. But now he's stuck in this underworld. You know, the underworld of his own creation, basically. But he can't let that guy die. He can't let Fibble die. If he does, there's this little teeny fine print in their contract that if he doesn't save him and he dies, Sin dies with him. And
oh, wow.
the concept of sin gets erased. The idea is that we would have some sort of utopian universe in which no transgressions exist anymore. Nothing that we do would be considered a transgression. So in a way, it would be good if Fibble died. He doesn't want him to let him die, only for his own self-preservation, but also for the idea that he doesn't want a world where we don't have these things. Right. So that's kind of the main overarching plot in the story. And as he goes through these other, issues, he's going to meet more and more creatures like that. But yeah, anyway, that kind of where it all started. College, I made up this crazy thesis, this whole idea. And rather than like putting it in a, probably 200-page giant book that only other philosophers would probably read and then contest. You know what? This is a great concept for a book, a comic book. This is a great concept for a story. Something I want to tell visually too, because I'm an artist and I wanted to be able to show this rather than just write it all. So let's do it. So that's when it kind of started. That's when In the Dark sort of took form, and I continued to grow and sort of experiment on that concept in my master's. So at that point, now I was in San Francisco at the California College of Arts. I'm still using fine art because I also do a lot of big paintings and landscapes of these ideas that come from that into the paintings, right? But the storybook, or that is, the comic book, kind of gives you more idea in terms of the actual thesis, I guess. So there's two things that I kind of did in my master's was a giant gallery showing of these crazy world spaces. Oh yeah, and the paintings are big, I should mention. They're on average about 10 feet wide, 6 feet.
Wow.
And they're on canvas. The biggest one I did was a 15-footer. And they kind of look like Hieronymus Bosch,
yeah.
Like an old Renaissance painter who did like pieces that were interpreting like what the underworld would look like, right? But I'm using it in a modern context because there are like Walmarts, sprinkled throughout the worlds, and there's people like, drinking coffee, and, two people fighting for boxes at Costco. There's like different things that are happening in these paintings that are supposed to kind of be more of like a cultural satire,
more modernized. Yeah,
more modernized criticism of some of the things that I see in real life, but it personified as these cartoony like creatures in this underworld, my own creation, right? But yeah, so that's kind of pretty much the origins of the main comic book. I also do a cartoon series called Schizo, the 1920s Killer Bear. And that character came from the comic book as well. I have a real affinity for 1920s cartoons, things like Felix the Cat, Betty Boop. It's kind of funny because that also sort of started from a very young age, where my parents, while growing up, we didn't have cable, and so she'd usually go to the dollar store and get VHS tapes, again, dating myself. $1 of like, cartoons that were open, free to public.
I remember those.
Yeah, right. And they'd always have like Felix Cat on the front or something, right? So I ended up watching all those cartoons as a kid and loving them so much. But it is kind of funny because looking back at them now, you realize that those cartoons were made in the 20s and 30s for adults. They were not actually children's cartoons. They had a lot of violence. They had a lot of
a lot of sex jokes.
Yeah,
sexual innuendos going on here. Betty Boop was not. There were some pretty raunchy cartoons with Betty Boop. Yeah. But no, that's kind of why, I guess, in my mindset when I was growing up was I had a pretty dark sense of humor, and I didn't find anything to be very offensive. because I was exposed to it quite early, and that's also kind of funny because a lot of the times, I get sometimes a lot of kickback on some of the things I create, and I'm like, it's for fun, it's funny.
Yeah.
Some people go like, oh, I mean, like, look at my background, people would go, oh, this is not for children. And I'm like, well, my comics were never meant for children. They're meant for an adult audience or, teenagers.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of my origin story. I continued on after my master's, just, continually working, publishing, producing. I do make cartoons of Schizo. So there's also animation involved, the fine art paintings as well. So I kind of dabble in a lot of realms, a lot of different mediums.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love how you explained to us briefly, like your writing process and the fact that you're both a comic writer and an artist. Do you find that your Latinx heritage directly affects the way that you convey tone and emotion through your writing and art?
I think that it would probably be influenced a little bit, but I also, again, like, I hate to say it, but there was some kickback, because of what the things that I'm talking about, coming from, Latin background where there's a lot of Catholicism, talking about demons was like, she's evil, like.
Yeah, if you just mention it, it's just like, oh, you're either possessed or you're gonna be possessed, like.
Andon con ella, I'm like, and I'm just drawing like Ren and Stimpy, like it's not even like something insanely bad, or something. I'm not, it's again, it was because I grew up in Nevada where I had like Western cartoons like Ren and Stimpy, and I was reading creepy horror comics, but I also have to say that had a lot to do with the openness that my family had. So my parents were extremely like open to that. They were like, no, she can do what she wants, and also like there was also kind of a gender thing where it was like, she's a girl. Why isn't she like ponies and butterflies and stuff like that? And I was drawing like, like acid spiders, that had and skeletons and dinosaurs. Oh, what's a girl drawing dinosaurs? It's like,
oh my God.
I would have all that kind of criticism at school, and they pulled my mom in, oh, look at these drawings she's making.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I would say, and my mom, she would look at it. She goes, okay, well, how's her reading? Oh, she's like the top in her class. And how's how's she with kids and stuff? Oh, she's so sweet. She's so friendly. Everything that my mom was asking, like I was great. And so she's like, so I don't see any problem here. She has an imagination,
That's great.
Good for her.
Like she saw like also like there were plenty of little boys drawing, war victims and kids, dinosaurs biting things heads off, and I couldn't do those, but my mom was like, no, you go ahead, you definitely like, you do what you want to do, Crystal, I'm not gonna keep you from doing that. So I have to say that, so like, I do have to say that some of, the Latin culture of my own family was the one who kind of, let me be who I wanted to be. But there was a little duality though, definitely, in that sense.
Yeah. What is it? Cool. Someone said, like, if you grow up Catholic and then you like start not being Catholic, you're just now obsessed with like death and like bones and stuff like that. And I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, that's true. I'm like, yeah, as someone who grew up Catholic, now I'm just like, all goth things, I am into it.
Definitely, and definitely. I mean, you can't see back here, but like,
right.
Or one of the Halloween time is like when I get to buy my actual like
wardrobe,
home decor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, all the cool black flower thing came out, or something.
Yeah. Like people say Halloween decorations. Oh, you mean permanent fixtures in my home?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I totally agree. As a Latina in the comics industry, can you provide other BIPOC creators with advice on how to navigate the marginalization that may occur?
So I guess my biggest advice would be to just, stay true to yourself and enjoy what it is that you like to tell and what you're trying to, put out. Because I just believe that no matter what, so there's always going to be people that are going to try to put you down or say it's not feasible. And I just kind of don't really think that that's how you're going to succeed. You need to have the passion, the drive, to be able to just kind of block them. I don't know how to say that. Just like, not really block them, but just like understand that they're not coming from the same world that you're coming from. And so maybe what they think is not the way to do it may not be, the right, it's their own route, Sometimes you got to pave your own route if you want to do that.
Right.
But I would say that persistence and dedication, you have to stay focused. You have to keep working on it. And you got to get exposure. You really have to kind of just make sure that if there's any sort of outlet for you to put yourself out, you got to do it, and a lot of people will be self-doubters and they'll say, well, maybe my work isn't, it's not ready. It's not fleshed out or whatever. I feel like the only way you're going to really make that fleshed out is to do it, because unfortunately, I have to say that, In the Dark kind of started in high school, and the first book didn't come out until my master's. So it was always like, oh, I got to keep finessing them. I got to keep drawing them. I got to keep working out the kinks. And I just don't know if it's ready. What if people don't like it? Right.
Yeah.
But I have to give a big kudos to John Llanos, at the California College of Arts when I was there. He was one of my mentors, advisors. And he saw my sketchbooks. I have like 20 plus sketchbooks, from years of building this lore, building these characters, building these creatures, demons, all this stuff, right? And he was like, so where's the book? That's the real thing. Oh, I haven't drawn it yet. What? You need to sit down and draw it now. You just got to do it, right? These little paneled comics, these little one-offs. A lot of them were just pencils. A lot of them pencil comics and sketchbooks, but nothing that I could literally show to people, press, print and go, to the world.
Like a pitch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So that was kind of one of the big things that was a part of my master's, was to not only produce like a body of work to show, my big idea that I had, but also to really make the book, and he was right. As soon as I started drawing page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I realized, oh my gosh, this is getting better. Like, okay, like maybe in the dark in this right here, first 3 pages kind of suck. Like now, I'm saying I'm like, oh, I should go back and redraw those now, but I can't. You got to commit. And growing. But now I'm like on issue 3, this book, and this one, the work, the art, the inking, the layouts, the dialogue, everything, just so much cleaner. But it doesn't happen unless you do it. So I guess my advice would be, don't get pressured into thinking that your story or your idea is not big enough to hit an audience, and also don't criticize your own self. I guess I feel like a lot of criticism on the inside is kind of what stops a lot of people from actually going out and doing it.
Yeah,
those are great words of advice. And similarly, I hear my husband, who does a webcomic, say some of the same things, and I'm really wanting to see that progression of your number 1 to now even your number 4 that you're working on. I really love to see the progression and the growth in books over time of the same creators, which we've had the opportunity to do with some of the people we've interviewed and gone through and seen like where it started and how it really develops over time. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
but similar to
probably the coolest one. I'm like, just advertising, but I'm actually like super proud of some of the pages that I've created in book number 4, which hasn't come out yet. Still working on them. But like, I can see the difference myself.
Yeah.
I look at it and I go, yeah. And I go, on the old one,
Just to further along the pieces of advice for maybe some creators who are just on the precipice of starting their own career. Is there any creative challenges that you personally faced with your own projects? And what were some of the lessons that you learned from those that you might be able to pass on to some of those creators?
Probably just, let me see, what was something that I could say that, like maybe time management. That's probably time management.
I'm not even a creator and I have that problem.
Yeah, only because if you don't put some time aside to work on these, sometimes they just sit for too long. And then what happens, or at least to me, is like I get kind of bummed out that I haven't worked on it, and feeling bummed out makes me not want to work on it. And then there's this cycle that happens, right? But if I always give myself some time every day to just, turn off the phone, turn off internet, do whatever you need to do in order to make sure you focus on it, then you produce. And every time you produce, even if it's just a little bit, it doesn't even have to be a whole page, or, it could be you just like writing thumbnails for the next page, or, you writing up some of the dialogue that's going to happen for the next page, something like that. If you just do something like that, you feel accomplished, and then you know that it's still moving forward. Right. And that's kind of, so I guess time management, and also like just don't procrastinate.
Scene. So, creators often use storytelling as a type of activism and education on certain topics. And in the case of In the Dark, you describe how it takes a satirical edge, and like you were describing, like how you used it for your thesis and stuff like that. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that, and what type of activism education you hope to accomplish if your work, if any?
So like I was saying, is that it's kind of it's more of a satirical look. I wouldn't say that it's advocating for anything, only because there's a lot of gray zone between what I'm saying and what's being shown. And, I don't want people being confused thinking that, like, if I drink too much coffee, I'm going to some crazy underworld.
Yeah.
It's exaggerating.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
It's more of a symbolism of, perhaps a person and the world that we're in, that is constantly saying, this is bad for you, but you're going to keep drinking it. Here's all the ads. Here's all the, it's going to continually be slammed in your face to keep having it, but it's bad, right? So the second character in the book, Idolatry, is kind of, he was a creature. So idolatry, right? The worship false idol, right? Has evolved himself to be more of a creature of mass consumerism. So he looks like a warped out Hello Kitty, Mickey Mouse thing, tumor coming off the front of him, and he's got like two mouths, to eat. But what he does is he goes into the world and he advocates for a little creature, a little cartoon cat that's half cat, half rat, and his name's the Happy Kawaii Cat. And he says, hey, kids, buy my stuff. You love me, right? Buy my stuff, So, and then they go, oh, we love Happy Kawaii Cat. Oh, my God. And there's all these like worshipers, right? People who just, they got to have everything that this guy has, So like not just the dolls, you need the DVDs, you need the special editions, you need the card game, you need the video games. It's like a never ending. It gets even to like the ridiculous, where it's like, I need the Happy Kawaii Cat car battery. I need the happy.
Is that just not supreme?
Right. Yeah.
It's very cool, very like good use of like modern consumerism and capitalism. I love that. That's great.
So that's kind of like, but it's like, but if you have too much, because there's like one character in there, a character that Fibble runs into in the underworld, right? And she's like highly obsessed. She's got like the whole collection, of all the kawaii cats, the plushy toys and stuff, right? But you're also wondering, like, but wasn't that kind of like, fed to you through society? Like the whole idea is again, it's not advocating. It's more of just satirical observation that it's like, that's fed to you every single day to go out and buy this stuff, you know, because it's got product placement all over it. And so it's like, is it really that bad, or is it, you know, is it bad in access perhaps, you know, but is it bad? I have like a Happy Quiet Cat mug or something. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys laugh. I mean, we're laughing at it, right? But I stepped into this Italian kind of meat market called Giuliano's yesterday, and they had a Hello Kitty pasta, Hello Kitty sauce, Hello Kitty wine, and I'm just like, what the hell just happened?
Right, like that's kind of like what I, you know, kind of go into, or sort of like satirizing in the second book with Idolatry, is like, the character himself also realized, I mean, this is kind of like in the book, you know, maybe explain too much, spoiler alert. But you know, he kind of looked at it as humans used to worship items of necessity. So like, you know, in the past, he used to look like a bull, right? Because bulls gave you meat, they gave you transportation, they provided you clothing, necessities, right? But he really, they already have all the necessities they need. So now what do they want? They want commodities, right? I realized I have to change myself. I have to evolve into this like half Hello Kitty Mickey Mouse creature. How they love me, you know, now they want to, you know, basically buy all my stuff. And that's his little motto, buy my stuff, you know? So
yeah. That's amazing. I love that. And like going off of that vein, I love the Final Fantasy 15 game so much that I'm considering buying it a third time for my laptop. And I'm just like, I know, like I already have this game, but I just love it so much that I'm just like, I'm going to buy it again. And I know that I already have it and that I own it, but literally the thought of having it again makes me so happy that I don't care.
that's kind of what the book is talking about, you know.
That's great. I love this. I love all of this.
Oh, awesome.
Can you tell us about who your creative role models are, and any book recommendations that are, to our listeners, that might highlight the Latinx culture and diversity?
So some of my role models were, let me think. Again, some of the very early funny comics. So, you know, and it's weird saying it because, you know, you look at my work and you go, Calvin and Hobbes, really? You know, like
no, you say that, but you can, like, in the artistic style, it's very kind of like Jeff Smith Bones and like the like no, I can see it.
Yeah, it has a very cartoony element to it, and that sort of cartoon style and look is definitely ingrained in like how I ended up drawing, or what my drawings kind of looked like, you know, mixed with like my imagination and my sort of personality, sense of humor. But yeah, like, you know, comic books, and it's funny you said Jeff Smith, because Bone was one of the very first books, like graphic novel that I got. And I got it at Walden Books, which I don't believe exist anymore, unfortunately. Dating myself again, here we go. Walden Books used to have like a whole graphic novel section, right? And I remember looking at them and going like, Superman, Spider-Man, you know, like just all the superhero stuff. And I wasn't really interested in it. And then there were like this teeny tiny little niche that said like independent comics, you know, like stuff outside the mega realm, right? And there was Bone. And I was like, what is this? And there was this cartoony character on the front, but inside it was like a massive epic, like similar to like Lord of the Rings, right? And there was danger and adventure and fantasy, right? And I was just like, I love this, you know? And so I would have to say one of the first influences, like, you know, like creators, right, that I really loved was Jeff Smith. And, you know, it was definitely a very big inspiration. And then, you know, I would say like Tales from the Crypt comics, Underground comics, you know, all of those kind of films were also like a big thing for me, only because, again, I didn't like any super sweet saturnine, you know, like things that were supposed to be for me, you know, you're probably really like the Pony comics or, you know, Care Bear, you know. You know, I'd rather watch, science fiction and horror. Science fiction horror was like my biggest thing, right? So, and then it was funny because I think, later on, some of my other big sort of influences were coming from animation and from cartoons. So like, again, I do animations myself. I do 2D animations, all hand-drawn, flip a page, hand-drawn, flip a page kind of style. And that is entirely self-taught. Like,
oh wow.
Up, yeah, there were no animation classes. We had very, very limited, computers. But my mom, again, like my parents were so incredibly, supportive that they went and they got me this animation program that is mega old now. It ran DOS. Sorry, kids.
Wow.
I'm completely lost.
Okay, so it was like a black screen and a little blinking green like thingy, and you'd have to type in run this program and
oh my god,
and then it would pop up, right? And you would be able to draw on your screen. This was like big thing. Okay, there were no Wacom's, there was no Cintiqs yet, none of that. You did use your mouse, click and with your mouse, and then it was kind of like traditional animation where you have like a bunch of pieces of paper and you have to draw it to create the illusion of movement, right? Only it was on a computer screen. So you would draw on the screen and then you'd press a key to let it kind of wipe, but you could kind of see the picture behind it like an onion skin, sort of like a thick paper. And you could draw again, flip and draw again and flip and draw again and flip. And I swear to God, like I was, in my teens, and summertime was like, I have nothing to do. I'm in the middle of a desert in Nevada. I have plenty of time to do some animation. So yeah, I'd waste a whole summer and make like 8-minute cartoons that run on DOS. So,
was this on a Commodore 64?
Oh,
not that old, but it was like a IBM.
Yeah.
Was it definitely floppy disks?
What you described, it sounds like the building blocks of Wacom and like Photoshop and like all of those. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because this program never took off. And I even tried to. I was like, I wonder if there's anything online about this, and it's gone.
Wow.
Not exist. And I'm like,
the fact that I've never heard of this, even though it sounds something that's so instrumental to like the building blocks and stuff, like it just, I don't know, because right now we're learning about digital decay in our class, and about how that is like a thing, like something gets invented, but it never takes off, and so it just dies on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when it dies, everything you ever created on it, the ability to see that ever again and develop that into anything or read it again. I have so many discs that I just threw away because I'm like, there's no way I can ever access the information on here ever again.
Yeah. I actually I did a really crazy thing where I realized these cartoons, and keep in mind they were like 8 minutes. That's if
that's
you're
a lot of time.
Yeah, you're drawing 24 pictures to make 1 second of cartoon. All right, 8 minutes. Oh my God, that was like 8,000 drawings almost.
Wow.
Like so many drawings to make this cartoon. And I was like in my teens, young kid. And I'm like, I gotta save this. How can I even save this, right? Because I couldn't even access the files anymore. Like you're saying, like, first of all, it was on a disc, like a floppy, not a floppy, a hard disk. It was like this.
Yeah.
1.2s or whatever they call it. It was a hard disk. Nothing has those. So I had to go to a library. And they had a disc reader, like super old.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to take out the file, right? But now I have to like run this on DOS. Nothing has DOS.
Right.
Yeah.
And I found an emulator that could play a DOS program so that I could open this program, so I could run this program. And I saw it. And I went, I can see it, right? But there was no way to change this file into something new. So then captures. Video capture. Yeah. And I hate to say this, but this cartoon was set to music, right?
Oh my God.
the program itself never had the music ability. It was something that I did. I would put my CD in a player, and I would play it at the exact same time that I'd play the cartoon, so that it would be perfectly synced to this music, right? Now the ability to just like, I was like, I finally got it. Now I can screen capture it. Now I can take the audio, which is just an MP3 file, put it in, play it seamlessly. I was actually super happy about it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. No, I love all of this. This is so like interesting and amazing.
Yeah,
Damn, that journey was amazing. You took us on right now. That I could feel that happening. Like,
yeah,
wow.
it was. I was like, wow, an old piece of media that I could never probably ever see, but I found a way. But it wasn't easy. You know, it was like hours of work just to see an old cartoon that I drew. You know, in my teens, like 12, 13 years old, maybe.
Yeah.
But where was I going on this? Oh yeah, so my mentors. So some of these mentors that I ended up picking up were animation mentors, and so I ended up really loving a lot of animation that was both indie, hand drawn, as well as like just people who really knew the medium. So like Richard Williams, he was the guy who like animated Roger Rabbit, and a bunch of other personal pieces. Glenn Keane. He's a really big mentor. Like he animates beautifully. Glenn Keane is like the guy who animated the genie in Aladdin and like the Beast and Beauty and the Beast, so like classic Disney cartoons, right? Which is funny because and it's really interesting because I've been following him for so long. As just love his work and just this animation that he can do. He make anything come to life, And I'm not that good because I'm all self-taught. So I probably need to work on some of my skills. But especially when I compare to like the masters, I'm like I'm a nothing,
But you still do it, and that's like that is that advice that you gave that you're doing it no matter what.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And that's kind of like, again, what I love to advocate is just you got to keep going and and you get better over time. So but yeah, no, Glenn Keane, and it's funny because I know that he was an animator for those big studios for years and years and years. And he never got to really make something on his own. And just last year, he got to make Over the Moon. He actually directed a cartoon.
Oh, wow. That was him.
And and it's just really cool because here was a what in the animation world people would say is like one of the master animators out there, never making something of his own, finally getting to make something of his own. And I think he's, I hope I'm not dating him too much, but I think he's in his late 60s, maybe 70s. And then he finally gets that opportunity. So I was like super happy to hear that, but again, like these were some of my role models and mentors. But your other question, kind of like for people who experience like Latino and Latina, creators, some of the most passionate creators I've met have come from the Comic Cons, from like the Latino Comics Expo, Texas Comic, SoulCon. It's a plethora of people. So I do want to do a little plug. So let me grab it here. Oscar Garza, Rolando Escobar.
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
Amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah.
These guys are amazing. And
I love their work. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have this whole book now. And it's
look at that big old thing.
Fat. It's fat. People don't sometimes realize how much it takes to make something like this.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, we actually have an ad in that book. So you see a picture of us in the very back.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, we love that.
No, it's good. We love any opportunity to work with them. Yep.
Okay, well then
We do know, but not everybody else does. So thank you.
Everybody else.
Also, in terms of animation, since we're talking about creators, Jorge Gutierrez, he was creator of the Book of Life. Don't know if you.
Oh yes.
I own this.
Yes. Isn't he working on that new Mesoamerican animation on Netflix?
Yes, it's called Maya and the Three.
Yes.
A brand new series coming to Netflix, and I'm super stoked. I mean, the thing is that, the guy, he definitely has his own style. He sticks to this, very like almost Dia de los Muertos kind of, but he makes it his own. And that's still, again, like original creations coming out and being able to show that. I would also say, Guillermo del Toro for sure, and I definitely love his work, only because like it's elements of Latino culture, right? But he also gets to still be original in his sense of like branching out, like making science fictions or making horror. Pan's Labyrinth, it was amazing. It was all in Spanish, and it was like creatures, fairy tale elements all mixed together. His elements, his culture's elements. It just, I love it. My culture, that's, I'm like, yes, if I can do In the Dark, if you like,
just putting it out there. I love it. Some great role models. Yeah. All right. So we have a section called Chisme, where we kind of share like anything, or like you get to share anything that you can about any upcoming projects, stories, comics that you are working on that you are willing to share with us. Just like a little tidbit.
So I guess, the main thing right now is book 4. Book 4 is like, what I've been really working on, want to finish, get to that next chapter. The In the Dark comic books, the novels that I'm making, it's 7 volumes. That's
wow.
Projected idea is 7 volumes. I'm on volume 4. I'm a little slow. I need to work a little faster. I'm going to be like coming in 2030, book 7, finally, how old is everyone, or did they pass away already? Even see the last book, so but
we're gonna interview you as Abuela C Comics.
Exactly. I'll be like, hey, finally, book 7. I'll be like, but hey, I didn't give up and I never stopped, right? So it's but book 4 is definitely like my it's right there on the burner, what I'm creating. But one thing that I have been kind of branching out into is making more animations. For fans who already know some of my work, they know that I do Schizo the Bear cartoons. So Schizo, the 1920s killer bear, and here's a picture of him. That's what he looks like. I got t-shirts. And a lot of his cartoons, but a lot of people have been asking me, how come Fibble and Sin, the 2 main characters in my book, haven't had really any animations? And that is on me, unfortunately. I had big plans to make something, and then it kind of died out, and I started working a whole bunch of other projects. They are coming back. And so I have actually been starting, In the Dark, Fibble and Sin animations. They're short little animations that I'm posting on TikTok, and there are 3 out now. And my voice actors, Mike Joseph, Richard Gardner, they're the voices of Fibble and Sin, and they are amazing. These guys, they've been with me for many years. Back when I wanted to make just the first one, like the first Fibble and Sin cartoon, I did a full audition. I had probably about 40 different people audition each character to see which one would match these characters. It was a really long audition process, but we got it. And I got these guys, and I am just so grateful for them because they are so amazing. Like they sound like the voices in my head, but no, they sound like Fibble and Sin, like how I imagined Fibble and Sin would do. And not only that, but they are really talented voice actors. They can get Fibble's voice because he's kind of a scared dude. He's always like, he's like kind of paranoid because he's always got like things, killing, trying to kill him, and also things that are like getting killed around him, so he's got some trauma, and he gets that voice. He knows how to make Fibble sound, like he's in peril. He knows how to make him scream. A real good voice actor, they don't go, they go, like they know how to make the character scream, and I can animate that expression, so he does a great job. And then Richard Gardner, who does the voice of Sin, like that demon with the long teeth, and he's all like creepy and maniacal, and he makes him laugh so evilly. And, I have to just say that they are amazing. And so like when I contacted them after quite a hiatus of not doing any Fibble and Sin cartoons, I said, look, I'm going to start doing Fibble and Sin cartoons again. putting them on TikTok. Are you still in? Sorry, I haven't contacted you in like maybe 4 years. And they were like, oh, you're back. Yes, we won. I was like, yay.
Wow.
So,
incredible.
Yeah. And the voices that they gave me for the first 3 that I've done so far, I mean, I love them. They're just so good. And I really advise people to not only, watch my cartoons, but, go support them too. They bust their asses doing so many takes and renditions, and they just get it. They just know how these characters function. So anyway, so that's kind of something new that I've been doing that I've been doing these new Fibble-ins and cartoons on TikTok. You can
Everybody's on the
Dark
TikTok.
Comics. Yeah, I'm an adopter now. Yeah, it's actually kind of addicting. It's a little scary.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, that and then it was kind of mentioned a little in my bio there. Sahu, the Super Android Hero Unit, which is a sci-fi, and again, like I love the horror realm and everything, but I also have that sci-fi element that I've always loved, but never really addressed or never really branched into, and I really want to do it with this. Super Android Hero Unit. That's the acronym is Sahu, and that's his name. And he is a robot who was created for the purpose of being a hero. The world itself, this is like, hundreds of years into decay. It's a ghetto planet. Earth is known as a ghetto planet. It's just, it's kind of where we're heading. Look at my son.
Right.
Yeah.
We're getting there. No, but and so there's this creator, a scientist, who makes this android called Sahu, the Super Android Hero Unit, who is supposed to be the one that is going to bring peace to the world. The only thing is that once he gets created, there's a little bit of a flaw in his brain or his programming, right? And he's pacifist. He's a pacifist.
Oh my God.
He doesn't want to kill anybody. He doesn't want to beat the bad guys, whatever, he wants to drink some root beer, and he wants to pet kitties, and he wants to go sleep in the park. That's his agenda, right? But the thing is, he was built as a war machine, a literal thing that is supposed to go out, find the terrors, and beat the bad guys. And he doesn't just beat them up and throw them into a jail. He annihilates them. Like, he just literally vaporizes and eviscerates people.
Wow.
Right? These bad guys, because they're super bad. Like, these are like, and it's a sci-fi. So it's like, there's, the Crusher, and it's like this crazy guy with a mohawk who spews nothing but F words. And he's riding a giant robot that's like as big as a skyscraper. And so, there's plenty of other creatures and things in this comic that I'm creating for Sahu. Sahu right now is only a web comic. It's like a very, it was originally a pencil comic. Again, in those books, those sketchbooks that I have full of pencil comics. And as I started to draw these comics and put them online, or, I scanned the pencil comics, people were really interested in it. They really wanted to see where the story was going. So then I started making a web comic, sort of redrawing them, inking them, coloring them. But now that I've seen how it reads, I don't really think it's a web comic. I think it's better as a book. And so that is kind of my next big project. Is I'm going to be publishing Sahu, the Super Android Hero Unit, issue 1, and I want to make it a full color book. Now, my books have always been black and white, only because I really love ink. I'm a digital artist, and India ink, FW ink, like all these, pencils and brushes. I use paint brushes because I am traditional, even a painter. So, but this one is going to be a little bit different because I'm going into a digital realm. It's going to be drawn digitally, and it's going to be colored digitally. So it's going to be a little bit of a different look per se. But it's still very cartoony. It's very funny, but it's extremely violent. So fair warning to the people watching, it's not for kids. It's still very dark. So yeah, and one of the main elements of the comic is going to be not only like the duality of, there's a duality between him, because his programming says he must do this, but he has a little bit of a free will because of that glitch, that pacifist thing. And so he battles himself, but he also has to battle these bad guys, because whenever these bad guys are coming, the scientist is like, oh, there they are, go get it, and he's like, no, I don't want to. And then this thing, starts glitching, and his thing is saying, target, acquired, and we, I know how to kill this thing, and he's like, no, like, he doesn't want to do it, but then whenever he does beat the bad guy, because sometimes he'll lose control, and it'll beat the bad guy, he really did something good to humanity. And like the people love him and they call him the hero, and they cheer him, and he's crying in the corner, because he didn't want to kill these guys, So it's a very interesting comic. It has a lot to do with free will. It has to do a lot with like personal demons inside the, battling of yourself, and like what is expected of you versus what you want to do. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a spoiler, but.
And those are available webcomic on your website?
Yeah. So if you go to inthedarkcomics.com, that's my main site. It has links to go to basically anything I create. So In the Dark, or Schizo the Bear, Trash and Clash, which is a smaller comic I do, and Sahu, the Super Android Hero Unit. It has a link to get to the web comic that's currently up.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it doesn't have everything yet because I kind of took a little space to start working on the book itself, but you can still at least get a good taste of like what it's going to be like when you read it.
Well, that's all good cheesemate of projects that are upcoming and that I personally am looking forward to after this interview. It just really sounds really cool and interesting. So we also have a segment on our podcast called Juntos y Fuertes, where we highlight noteworthy endeavors by members of marginalized groups that we think deserve support. Are there any projects or programs that you'd like to share with the listeners?
I guess the main ones I would want people to support are the Comic Cons. So the Latino Comic Cons.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is something new and growing, and I hope even grows even more. Because, I was part of the Latino Comics Expo since it started. And that was...
We saw your picture way back when.
Yeah. So, and it was just amazing that, when we first started, it was in the Cartoon Art Museum in San Francisco. And we think we had maybe 8 tables. And there was only 2 female creators, me, and I think Graciela. And she, and we were the only ones there, but it was very small. But what was cool was that when people heard about it, a lot of people came, and it was like, oh, there it is. There's that audience. They do want this,
Mm-hmm.
It's out there, and they want to see what, Latina creators are making, but they never had that outlet,
Yeah.
And it's just so great to see that now 10 years later, we've got, maybe 4 or 5 like that are like at least a little bit well known. There's probably still many little budding ones in other cities that are just getting their feet wet, and I love that idea, and I'm hoping that continues. But I do want to kind of put a real plug for Latino Comics Expo, the Texas Latino Comic Con, and SoulCon, run by Frederick Aldama. Like all these guys are busting their asses, and they're doing something that is bringing us, to the spotlight. They're showing creators that are usually not that well known or well seen,
Yeah.
And that is a really important thing, and something that and it's funny because when we've had it in the past, the Latino Comics Expo in Long Beach, the crowds, like just the massive amounts of crowds, LA,
Yeah.
But it was like, yes, and everybody would come in and they would say, oh my God, I didn't even know these happened. I didn't even know that these exist. And, I could do this. And, that was a cool thing. When people come to the table and, you're a Latina and you can do comic books. Like, first of all, I didn't think I could, because I'm a woman. That was one of the first things.
Yeah.
Because usually they get kind of pushed away, like, or and it's kind of sad, but like some people actually do come up to my book, and they go, so you drew this? And one time I had like my roommate as a helper on my table, and they went to him. Yeah. And thought that he was the one that did it. And I was like, and he's like, I don't even know how to draw. This is who you need. This is who you need over here. And I was, So, but no, that was great. Is like when I would see, young artists, budding artists, they'd see this and they would say, "Oh, that's amazing! I can do this," And I loved that idea, that fact, And it was only possible because of these Comic Cons. So I definitely want to give plugs to those guys.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, actually that's how we got to know a lot of the Latinx creators out there that go to these conventions. It's always fun to go, and I can't wait till we are better on Earth and are able to go physically to these conventions and say hi to our old friends. So thank you for bringing that up. Where can the audience find your projects, any future projects? I know you mentioned your website, social media, you mentioned TikTok. We want to start following you. We just got a TikTok too. So where do we follow you?
So again, the main site is inthedarkcomics.com. And that is a pretty good landing page for information on like where to buy the books and bios on the characters, as well as just links to get to the other places that I, frequent. So, but I am on Instagram. Handle is Comic Pro, spelled COMICKPRO. So you can go on Instagram there. There's also my Twitter, same handle, Comic Pro, COMICKPRO. And then on TikTok, it is In the Dark Comics, at In the Dark Comics. And that will be where you can see the Fibble and Sin cartoons that are coming. I'm working on the next one, so that should be coming up soon. It's got a really funny little chihuahua in it. And then we have, I think those are the kind of the main places you'd want to go. Otherwise, the inthedarkcomics.com is definitely the place where you're going to be able to get to every other social media place on the world, because I am everywhere. I try not to not be. If something opens up, I'm like, oh, I better make an account there just in case. Maybe I need to make that a creature in my book or something, like the one who's like addicted to social media or something.
I love that idea. I love it. I just saw this episode on the show. I do not remember what it's called, but there was this person who was just so social media like driven. Yeah. And it's kind of sad because like I think it mirrors a lot of the people out there. But then if you don't advertise yourself, how are you gonna get your message out there? I mean, it's a kind of a double-edged sword, I guess. Yeah,
it can be a burden and it can be also like a real benefit. Only because it's true. As a creator, it is like the gateway to getting so many different people across the world to be able to see your work, rather than, I'm just at, your local bookstore today,
Right.
I have fans like in France, in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Mexico, in Panama, there's all these other places that, they wouldn't have been able to have access to this stuff had it not been online. Right. But at the same time, there are unfortunately and I'm not anywhere near those people that they're on there 24/7. As soon as something comes up, they hear the phone go, oh, I can resist, I won't do that. So, but no, it's true. It can be dangerous, but it can also be really helpful, especially I think to a lot of budding artists out there who want to gain exposure and just, build an audience, because a lot of people think that they can't, but they can with the internet. So it can be.
Absolutely.
Well, I learned so much, and I went down memory lane with that DOS program. That was super awesome. The little hard discs. I have hard discs. I don't even know what's in them, but I need to.
And you'll never know.
And I need to throw them out.
And now we know that you can go to the library and they probably have something.
The library has disc readers, and also your local library can also have the zip one. I don't know what that one was called. It was purple. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was a real
zip files.
I kind of remember that. Yeah.
It was they have all the readers. Let's just say that they have.
That makes sense readers. That a library would do that.
Right.
Because,
archive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
support your local
great
library
information. Yes.
Your local libraries. That's actually so definitely. We got to keep that. We got to keep that information alive.
Yes.
Oh my God. I just thought about microfilming, but anyway, like, wow, how old is that? But thank you so much, Crystal, for being here with us today and for the Latino Comics Expo panel. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for all showing up, and I hope you guys all enjoy it, and definitely follow Crystal and follow us. And I want to especially thank the Latino Comics Expo for inviting us to do this panel here at the Latino Comics Expo at 2021 Virtual Con. So thank you so much, guys. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, yeah, and thank you guys for the time, and yeah,
yay,
appreciate it.
Hello, everyone, and thank you to everyone that came out today. We have another program coming up soon at 3:30 with Lalo Alcaraz. But right now we have Crystal with us today. And then we have one quick question because time is of the essence. Someone asked, as artists, we have a lot of ideas, but we fail to recognize that our ideas can resonate with others. How can we learn to communicate effectively? How can we make a Bible like yours? And I think you referenced this Bible during the interview.
You know, how can we learn to effectively communicate? You know, I think a good resource to do is writing classes. I didn't really mention that in the question and answer, but I read a lot and I also write a lot. And taking creative writing classes and taking classes that really help you kind of organize how to write things down kind of helps. It definitely has the ability for you to sort of designate what it is you want to say, how are you going to say it, what do you want to kind of get, what's the the main issue you want to get through. So I guess writing classes in my case would be a big one. Not sure if that answers all the question, but I mean, definitely that. Also, I mean, if you're doing comic books, I would say, drawing out everything,
Yes.
kind of draw out different varieties of like what it is that you kind of want to get across. It's a two-part medium. Visually, you have to be able to, you don't want to draw like 7 pages of just like the same person standing in the same pose, otherwise it gets boring. But then also like writing wise, you want to be able to write everything that you want to say, but in a comic book, you also want to be able to kind of keep it entertaining. So you can't put too much in the word bubble. So yeah, there's a balance there. I'm pretty sure that, a good comic book classes would actually help a lot. But when it comes to just effectively communicating, for me, it had to do a lot with like reading comprehension, reading books, read complex books, trying, pick out those books that, fantasy books I like, but a lot of other, a variety of different topics and things. You can kind of start to see how people write and how creatively you can write. And then that kind of helps also.
Thank you, Crystal, so much for your time and for being with us today. Up next, we have La Vida Cómica with Lalo Alcaraz. He is a nationally syndicated and Pulitzer Prize winner nominated cartoonist, my bad. Lalo Alcaraz discusses his art, politics, and his work on Pixar's Coco with the Latino Comics Expo founder, Ricardo Padilla. That's up next right now at 3:30. I dropped the link in the chat for you guys to register, as well as other links to social media handles that were mentioned during the interview. Again, thanks to everyone that joined us, and see you on the next program. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Crystal.
Oh, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.